Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for mapes. Hitler faked his death and then escaped. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts in the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome. This is going to be something a little different. My name is Tomcat, a.k.a. Tom Thompson, also known as the Reptilian. And who am I joined by?
Captain Positivity I'm going to be today.
All right, great. You can be the positive one. I'm going to be super, super negative about the shit that's going on in the world right now, especially within Canada. But welcome. We're doing something a little different, considering what's going on in Canada. And I speak out about the things that the government and people in power are doing fairly often. And if you're a fan of mine, you know, I've gained a lot of recognition on apps like TikTok and now starting on Instagram of speaking out against the establishment and what's going on. And considering what is happening in Canada right now with all these fires, we decided to kind of switch it up, flip the script, they say. And we're going to do a little bit of a rant episode. These is stuff you can look forward to on the Patreon. This is why you subscribe. There's a lot of stuff, just for people to know, that is already on the Patreon. Tons of stuff and stuff that is coming. And there's going to be some new faces and things that are happening on that side of the world over on the Patreon. So go subscribe. But I brought you to this congregation to discuss the fucking crazy shit that's happening in the world right now. Did you hear about what's happening in Canada?
Honestly, specifics, not really, but I will say, just to preface this whole thing, and I know we're talking specifically about what's going on in Canada, but I think not necessarily what we're looking at on screen right now, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things we might mention are fucking pretty global. A lot of the shit seems to, it's funny, like we sit on, I wouldn't say completely opposite sides of the world, but you know, we're thousands of miles away right now, and like there's way too many parallels, negative parallels for my liking.
100%. And to be honest, we will probably talk about this stuff. I have a gin drink going. I actually took 2 shots before this, just because I got off work. I walked outside. I could smell the burning of the burning of wood, and all the sky was like, it was still sunny but like hazy and smoky. What are you drinking on? It looks pretty good.
This new thing that I'm trying, it's
It's good.
Falling Apple medium sweet Irish cider.
That sounds actually very good. Do you like it?
Yeah,
Do you like it
yeah. I do like cider, so.
Do you like it more than Angry Orchard? Sponsor
Well,
us.
it's kind of like that. It's not as nice though.
Yeah.
It's not as
So,
nice.
considering we are in the month of Pride too, which is something that I believe has been hijacked. Either way you slice it, there is a lot of people on both sides, and I'm talking about the people in the over-encompassing community and cult, as I call it, of the LGBT, that are speaking out against this. There is one of the founders of Gays Against Groomers that is speaking out openly against the indoctrination of the children to the schooling system of these ideologies. And, we're going to try to run this on YouTube and see what happens. We've only had 1 warning, so if we get a strike, we'll just have to be careful for everything that's going forward, but this will be on BitChute and Rumble. Considering what I said to Brett, which is going to be coming a new face to the podcast in a couple weeks, probably now, the time that it will come out, is actually we discuss a fairly pretty fun episode about lizard people underneath Los Angeles. This strange story that who knows if it holds any truth, but it's quite weird and strange. But I was like, I got Corona, just as a fun. It was a hot day. So we've been recording at his bar and filming at his like awesome little loft that he has, and it will be pretty cool because eventually we might bring him on First Class Horror if possible because he is a movie buff into stuff and he's a funny cat. So I was like, I didn't realize this was Anheuser-Busch. And then we kind of joked about there's nothing wrong. I just want to say this off the bat with being gay, bi, or lesbian. But as soon as you turn it into this kink thing where it's all about fetishes and sexuality and it's not about love anymore, it's just about degeneracy, that's when I have an issue. And the reason I have an issue and people have an issue with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light is because of people like Dylan Mulvaney, who I like the joke that Tim Pool made is like a Borat of the gay community. He's not actually trans as they would say he is trans. He's not getting any of the surgeries, even though he claims he is. He's not on any of the hormone blockers or any of that stuff. He is a caricature of a trans person and a caricature of a woman and a little girl is why people have a problem with it. He is a caricature. He plays this little girl in a fucking dress. And if you've seen some of the stuff where like oh, look at me, I'm running through the woods in my high heels. These are my running heels. This is what people have a problem with. It is a misogynistic version of what a female is. Do you agree?
It's just, you know what? I don't even know anymore. This is the thing. I don't want to say I don't know where I stand. I do know where I stand in that sense, but like this thing has just gotten so like muddled and like
polarized.
Yeah, and it's just like
it's on purpose.
How many more like letters and numbers and pluses and minuses and divisions and all can you add to something? I was like, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. It's
do you
like,
know? Okay, do you understand that the pride flag has changed numerous times before? It included everything. It already included trans people. So now it's a trans flag, and it's sad in my opinion. Okay, you shouldn't have any ideologies in your institution. Your government institution should not be flying flags other than for the country. And I said this on a video that like flags are for countries, not all the different sexual identities that you want to think that you are. And we and Chelsea were taking a walk yesterday, and then we walk always by the public school, and they're flying the flag, but now it has a fucking circle in it, and I'm guessing that encompasses everything. The funny thing is, they don't ever mention, there's no mention of straight people within this ideology that is supposed to encompass every sexuality under the fucking sun, trans people were already included in the original flag. It was gay, lesbian, trans, and bi or whatever, right? And now it's like, do you know the triangle thing that was added? Mm-hmm. That includes all these different versions of trans people. But do you know what includes black people and brown people? Is why there's the black and brown stripe thing. Did you know that?
Isn't it weird though, right? And like there's going to be so many people that will probably listen to this and want to fucking stab me to death or whatever. And like, this isn't...
I doubt it on our end of who's going to hear this.
Anything I say, like, isn't... this has nothing to do about, like, inciting violence or any of this shit. Like, but it's weird how and I don't agree with how things used to be. This isn't like oh, hey, we should go back to the 1950s where you can smack a bitch around and she has to be like tied to the bed. And I'm not even necessarily...
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even necessarily referring to that though, but like, it's so bizarre that it's gone from like something like that. Now we're literally... I wouldn't even say we're at the other end of the spectrum. There is no like spectrum anymore. It's like a crime to be just like an average white dude.
It's back in the day, it was rebellious to be like punking outside of the system and maybe like fucking a bunch of chicks or messing around with a dude. Who knows what would rebelling what it used to be was against anti-establishment and maybe doing something a little different than what normal people were doing. Normal quotations because everyone's strange that listens to this. We're all strange, and I want to make I want people to understand. Okay, I have nothing against people that are gay and lesbian or even trans people. Nothing. And Aaron's shaking his head because we both agree. We've talked about this many times. I talked about this with a lot of people at work that all hold the same. Like, I work with a lot of religious people. I'm not religious, and you'll hear it come out on shows coming up eventually when I have my buddy Brett and Sawyer on that are both religious in different religions. And it's interesting because I find it like I'm spiritual. I believe that there's a higher power to an extent, but I have nothing against anybody. But as soon as you make it about depravity, in my opinion, and it's fed into this narcissistic, like Dylan Mulvaney, this narcissistic, over-sexualized, fetishized degeneracy is when I kind of draw the line, especially when you're pushing it on children. And it is weird now that, like I was saying, now this circle on the flag, and we're walking by with the dog, and Chelsea was like, "Oh, I was hoping you didn't see that," just because like she knows what I'm gonna say. I'm like, "Fucking Jesus Christ, you need to fly that flag!" Like and they're saying it's for inclusivity and all the things that they claim that it is. But if it was any other ideology, say a school, right? Say the principal and someone within the schooling system, liked communism or Nazism. Are we gonna start flying Nazi flags? Because that's it's taking an ideology and then flying the flag based on that ideology or that community. And I'll let you, if you want to say something else, I'm gonna bring it in with something.
You know, I'm looking at some of the news from around the world here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that thing, that Nikki Haley chick. She's a Republican 2024 presidential contender.
No, I'm surprised because I listened to Tim Pool, which
she made some comments anyway the other night about this is how it's been worded in the media, that she suggested at a speech on Sunday night that transgender girls in sports are leading to suicidal ideation in teenage girls. So basically what she said was, the fact that we have gender pronoun classes in the military now is insane. I mean, all of these things that are pushing what a small minority want on the majority of Americans in the world, it's too much. It's too much. This is an issue of our time. The idea that we have biological boys who are now playing girls' sports. My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have the conversation with her. How are we supposed to get our girls used to the fact that biological men are in their locker rooms? And then we wonder why a third of our teenage girls seriously contemplated suicide last year. And then she just goes on to basically say like that she just doesn't, whole thing she doesn't get. And then of course, this is the part that always annoys me. So then we have the flip side of that. Is several mental health experts and LGBTQ advocates expressed outrage on Twitter.
Of course they did. The little small community.
At her town hall comments, Tyler Black, a child and adolescent psychiatrist who studies suicide and mental health at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, tweeted, "If there is one thing that I can promise in this world and stake my entire knowledge and expertise as a suicidologist," is that even a thing?
I'm sure they made it up now. Yes.
It's that young teenage girls are not made more suicidal by the presence of trans people. Now, I love how, but do you see how that was twisted from what that woman said to, oh, you're trying to say that people are killing themselves because trans people exist. No. Nobody said teenage girls were killing themselves because trans people are the presence of trans people. She just made a point that there's biological men in teenage girl locker rooms now. And in the military, we have pronoun classes because they don't want somebody to say the wrong thing. And then the whole world has to fucking end.
This is, and people don't want to accept this is a Marxist communist tactic. Identity politics is in critical race theory is a Marxist communist theory. It's literally part of a communist agenda. And that's what people don't understand. You have the freedom to do whatever you want. And I've said this on videos that I've done, is that like, and for the people that maybe don't know this side of me and how I do speak out, that maybe listen to the podcast, this is going to be something that will be coming later on the show. We're going to eventually create a political show. It's going to happen. I've already kind of thought of the name for it. And it so we can kind of express our thoughts on stuff. And I do think it will be valued in the conspiracy community, which is like I said, people want to understand what conspiracy means, right? I'm going to go into tangents on this episode. Conspiracy was coined by the CIA to discredit people like me. But the thing is, you're making this a guise of oh, it's going to help more people if we're more inclusive. It's actually hurting more people and confusing children and fetishizing, I hate that word, but children. That's what it's doing. And the thing is that they're claiming all this stuff. What about the trans regret stuff? What about all the why 40% of the community or whatever, the 40% of the people that do transition end up committing suicide or at least attempting it? And to me is like, there's a big part of it that we live in this society where it's all about attention and instant gratification. And that is what is happening within the pride community, because even people that are part of the LGBT, and it's an encompassing thing. I've said this before, right? This idea that like, if you are gay, you have to be this way, right? Mm-hmm. That if you don't associate with what exactly they're saying, then you need to feel bad. You'll feel like a bad gay person, a bad queer, if you're not aligning with their ideologies, all of it.
See, this is my thing, and
so pedophiles sneak their way in, though.
This kind of, I think shit like that annoys me even more, because it's like the thing of like, I'm sure like years ago, I don't know because I can't speak from that place because I'm obviously just an average white dude, but it's like saying, oh, how could a black person not care about racism? It's like, yeah, but there is a majority of people out there that are just looking to live their lives, and like, you don't I don't have to be, like, for example, if I was gay, I don't think I would feel the need to go out and support some of this bullshit. I'm pretty sure I could be gay, dude, and just like not be involved, and that's care.
Why there's people coming out now and saying like, there is dudes that are literally like, I don't understand this part of it, but there is people that are gay conservatives that actually go to church and stuff like that, and they're ousted from the community, especially people that are just gay conservatives that speak out against this. And I've seen this all over TikTok. There's one, I wish I could remember the guy's name, that does a very good job at explaining how wrong the stuff that is going on, and that all the stuff that they've built to have free, not freedom necessarily, because back in the day, yes, there was gay people that ridiculed, gay bashing existed, stuff like this, where people would go out of their way to hurt people that were part of the community. But now it's like the community, say it like that, like the LGBT plus, like the fucking, they love that Trudeau can actually say it properly, even though he's messed it up a couple times. But they're selling themselves to this community. They're trying to grow into this huge faction of people because it is a communist agenda. No matter if you want to believe that or not, I can prove it. I can literally prove that this is part of the communist agenda. But the thing is that they're ousting people from the community that are gay and bi and lesbian or whatever, that don't like what's going on. There's people that follow me on my account on TikTok, which I have like over 30,000 people, and some of them are bi, lesbian. I've heard someone like just comment on something I said about that they're bi and they don't agree with what's going on because children don't need to know. Let them be kids. They don't need to know what kind of, like, if you stick your dick into a butt or a vagina.
So here, right, and here's something, and people may not like this, and it's one thing that I stand on, and I literally couldn't give a fuck, right? Who hears me say it or who takes issue with what I say about this?
Oh, you know me, I don't care. Look at
me. But when it comes to that, when it comes to stuff like that, right? I have a nearly 9-year-old boy. I swear to God, right, we haven't hit that spot yet, but we're slowly etching towards those kinds of things.
He's 9. They're teaching this to kids that are like 5 and 4.
I will fucking flip my shit. Like, genuinely, like, and I don't give a fuck who can. People say, oh, no, but it's this. I don't want to hear any of that bullshit. I don't want my kid exposed to it. don't be trying to put your bullshit and all that fucking stuff. It doesn't need to happen.
You know what I think is funny? I said this. I was like, why do gay people or the people part of the LGBT, that are super for abortions, and I'm pro-choice. As crazy as that is, I'm pro-choice. I would have kids today when I was very young if this didn't happen, and I don't believe that you're killing a human being until a certain point. I'm pro-choice to a point. Okay, but these people that want like abortion till like they're trying to pass a law in California. This is true. You can look it up until 3 months after the baby is born. That is fucking crazy. And that is murder. And the thing is, you have to understand these people that are in this community that don't want to have kids, most of them, a mass majority of people that are in the LGBT fucking cult, because that's what it is to me. And I'm going to read off the definition of a cult. And I got this. I looked up purposely for a definition from a website that is pro-gay, and I'll read it. And if you take away the charismatic leader, sounds exactly like a cult, and their whole community. But the thing is, these are people that don't necessarily want kids, but then yet like people like Jeffrey Marsh that creep on TikTok that want to indoctrinate your kids and have them go on their Patreon, and he's gonna help you and make you feel affirmed and loved for who you are. That is crazy that there's people in this world, and this is what they're building and creating for the youth to be, that you need affirmation for every little thing you do, and everyone needs to love you or you can't be loved at all. That is fucking psychotic.
It's wild, like, and when it comes to kids and stuff, I just have such a rigid, like, some of the things, some of the discussions, I'm willing to maybe hear the other side, or at least let somebody like tell me what they think, and I probably still won't accept it. But when it comes to stuff like kids, I think it's from having a young kid myself who's already, in the schooling system, that like shit like that for me is literally, it's just black and white. There's no like, there's nobody that can convince me. There's no fucking 30 something year old dude wearing fucking makeup and like his girlfriend or his fucking friends knickers that's gonna like convince me that my kid should be exposed to stuff like that. It's just not gonna happen. Like, and again, I think it's okay to say that stuff when you're not in the position, and it's not and this isn't. Again, you see, it gets twisted into, oh well, you're saying that, so you're trying to infringe on my freedom and what I want to do. No, I didn't say that. But what is my kid? My dumbass dog.
It's so good.
What has my kid got to do with fucking whatever you're doing?
And why is it up to people that don't have kids? And to me, it's the teachers that have somehow, it's this weird, this tentacles, you could say, that has inserted its way into society in every percentage. It says in this article, and I don't believe it because it's called www.advocate.com. I saw the 1 in 9 adults are LGBTQ. That's not statistically proven. About 9% of the entire world. And think about that. And that's what these articles are claiming, that I don't even think are correct, are gay or bi or trans or whatever, right? A very small percentage of the community that seems to have their fingers in everything. Inclusivity, yes, people can do, and I stand behind fundamental freedom to do what you want with your body, with yourself, as long as you're a consenting adult, and to be able to do what you want when you want, as long as it's not hurting other people. As soon as you start penetrating the schooling systems with your ideologies and forcing it, especially, it's all run and conditioned by the government. It's all public schools doing this, and there's outrage in religious schools, that kid, the teenager, young kid. I'll think of his name, but he got suspended for saying there's only two genders in a I think Christian or Catholic school, and then he was suspended for a week. He came back on the property, and the police arrested him for trespassing, even though his suspension was up.
Yeah, that sounds all too familiar.
Then tell me about that teacher. And
Well, that shit is still going. Let me see what the status of it is right now.
So
Enoch
here, while you get
Burke.
that pulled up, let me read the definition of a cult for everyone, and see if this sounds familiar. And eventually, I'll be doing a video about this. Cult: a group or movement exhibiting a great or excessive devotion or dedication to some person, idea, or thing, and employing unethical, manipulative tactics and techniques of persuasion and control to design to achieve the goals of the group's leaders to actually or possibly a possible detriment of the members, their families, and the community. Unethical manipulation techniques of persuading and control include, but are not limited to, isolation from former friends and family, use of special methods to heighten suggestibility and subservience, and powerful group pressures, information management, suspension of individual or critical judgment, information management, suspension of individual or critical judgment, promoting of total dependency on the group and fear of leaving it. What does that sound like to you, people? Does that sound kind of familiar?
It's just wild. I was just looking at something else here as well about this again, like another thing that you don't ever really hear about. Um, a Vermont school district has just reached a settlement to pay a local family $125,000 in damages after disciplining them for speaking out against a transgender student that was creeping out high school girls in a school locker room. In addition, the school has promised to reinstate Travis Allen as the middle school soccer coach, as well as remove any records of discipline against him and his daughter in the school database. Right? So, the legal battle began last October with the Allen family filing a lawsuit claiming that Travis and his daughter were punished for expressing their views on a matter of profound public concern. Whether a teenage male who identifies as female should be permitted to change in a girl's locker room, regardless of the discomfort experienced by all the other girls and
So
pupils in
it
that locker room.
it doesn't matter about if young women and little girls feel uncomfortable, which has happened within the states. And the thing is, this is from Ireland, right?
No, this is from the States.
Is it? But you've
This is a
also had that
recent thing. Oh
teacher,
yeah,
that
that
Irish
other teacher,
teacher.
that like I mean that shit is absolutely just
He said there was
ridiculous.
two genders or whatever, and then he's being
Yeah, he
prosecuted.
he basically refused the whole thing. Like what it boils down to is he refused to use pronouns. Was the extent of how dangerous what he said was. He was like, no, it's either a he or she. I'm not doing this like him, her, they, them, and have to learn off all these
It's
things.
so
It's just
it's
boy,
crazy
girl.
because people like Antifa and shit like that, they're anti-fascist, are literally fascist. And the thing is, people have to understand communism and fascism, okay, are on two ends of the spectrum when it comes to political ideologies. But actually, if you understand them, they are very much closer together than you have any idea about. Nazism and fascism is based on traditionalism and being the traditional ways of life. And then communism is the left side of things with Stalin and stuff like that, which eventually we're going to talk about Stalin. And I actually want to do an episode about Karl Marx on the episode. I got on the show. I got lots of stuff coming because I want to fight back against this stuff. And I know that people are used to very like, we're doing dark humor on the show. That's the point. And we got a lot of fun stuff coming when it comes to dark humor that's not about any of this political stuff. But I think that I have the platform to say it and people know that I speak out against this. So I think it is justified that we do discuss these type of topics that are happening. And you hear some of the stuff on the Patreon, and that's why we keep it for the Patreon for people that want to pay for extra content, have a lot of fun with this shit, and hear our opinions on what's going on in the world. But fascism and communism are actually close knit together. And some of the stuff that is being proposed and pushed and jailing people for speaking out against a certain ideology does sound a lot like Nazism.
So here we go, right here, and that kind of feeds into exactly what you just said. So Burke, an evangelical Christian, had refused on religious grounds to comply with a request from the school's then principal to call a transgender child by a new name and by a they them pronoun, clashing on a number of occasions with the school management over the issue. Mr. Burke refused to comply with the court order, resulting in his imprisonment for 108 days last year for contempt of court. He was released just before Christmas, despite not purging his contempt, and
That's
renewed.
crazy.
He renewed his daily visits to the school when it reopened in January. He currently has let's see. He currently has an €88,000 fine racked up against him. He gets fined €700 every day he shows up to school. So, like, in like
That
protest
is
of this,
fucking. That's fascism.
in
That is
protest of
imposing
that,
your
like,
ideologies on people.
he showed up to the school every day as like he was like, no, I'm not coming to work. You're not allowing me to come to work. So they fined him 700 a day. This went on for months, like, so he has nearly €90,000 racked up in like fines. And then he went to the High Court. The Board of Management of Wilson's Hospital School secured orders against Mr. Burke after he continued to show up to work at its premises despite being suspended, pending the outcome of a long disciplinary process. The High Court granted the school a permanent injunction last month prohibiting Mr. Burke from entering its premises and awarded the school €15,000 in damages.
What?
Like, what? Then he was sacked from his job later that month, but has continued to turn up almost daily to school, where he stays outside for the day before being picked up by his father and driven back to Castlebar. I'm standing here outside the school. I've been here since January. I've been here in freezing conditions. I've been here in the rain and sleet. And it's all because I have rights. No judge has the prerogative, no principal or anybody else on this planet to take away those rights.
Freedom of speech is essential for a society to function in democracy. And I think it's very fucking funny that they always claim that they're doing things for democracy. That is a fucking lie. That's what, like, it's gaslighting. Justin Trudeau always does this, where he claims it's on the guise of freedom and democracy. Meanwhile, we are paying billions of dollars to a fucking country, Ukraine, that literally fucking has one of the most corrupt countries in the entire world. Fucking has sex trafficking, biotech weapons labs, which has been proven, and they're not a democracy because they're literally jailing fucking pastors, people that protest against it. The guy that spoke out that lives in Ukraine, I think he's from the States, and they're putting him in jail because he spoke out against both sides, Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And this is funny when they always do it on the guise of
I
democracy.
think that dude is looking at like fucking 15 years or some shit.
Yeah. Meanwhile, fucking Vladimir Zelensky is doing coke. And then literally, he's on coke, you can tell. And he's coked up and on all sorts of drugs, just like fucking Hitler was. And he's like doing fucking lines, and you can tell he's always sniffing and looking paranoid. And then me, someone who speaks out against this shit, feels like this.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
You know what, right? I didn't realize till I was reading like the most recent stuff here on this teacher in Ireland. Like a lot of the shit he says is pretty basic, and like I agree with it wholeheartedly. Like he said, this was yesterday. People are silent in this country. People across the world are afraid to stand up. They're afraid to open their mouth. This has to stop. That is simply what I'm doing here. I have rights, and nobody has the prerogative to take those away. And that's what's happening in our courts, and it's terrible. He intends to come back to school in September. As it stands at the moment, we're heading for the last day of school. I'm going to be showing up to work. There is a disciplinary appeal meeting for Friday, July 7th. There is no need for all this. Somebody else is going to get a shitload of money, a panel of 3, I believe, and there will be a long day of back and forth with different people as to whether the school acted rightly in getting rid of me for saying that I could not call a boy a girl and that I objected to being forced into accepting transgenderism. I have a belief that nobody in this country should have to pay for their beliefs, or indeed nobody in this country should have to pay for exercising their rights. This was in response to being asked about his nearly €90,000 fine.
This is a bit, okay, and honestly, Ireland is a prominently Catholic country. So it is very hypocritical for them to claim, that it's about democracy and freedom and inclusivity. You are doing the exact same fucking things that the Nazis did. Literally. claiming, and like the same thing happened over COVID, claiming people are plague rats and unethically moral and all this stuff that they're claiming under the guise of democracy and freedom. Gaslighting is a major issue within politics, of them like making you feel less than because you don't believe in this encompassing cultist tribalistic community Marxist communist bullshit, because it's literally it's a bit of fascism, it's a bit of fucking communism. They're taking these inherent ideologies throughout history and then forcing it on a people to be accepted. This is what is happening. And honestly, recently you had the fucking Major League Baseball, you had Xbox, all put their shit as the pride flag colors, and they took it down within days. Because people are outraged. Nobody fucking cared. And I want to say this. Nobody cared about what you did or what dick you sucked or who you fucked or who you loved before this. But as soon as you started going after the children and pushing this ideology and indoctrination in schools is when parents started to have a real issue and everyone started to notice. You can't make people accept your ideology, especially within Catholic and Christian schools. And I'm neither of that. Originally, like, when me and Chelsea were younger and we were planning to have kids, stuff like that, I was like, I send them to public school or whatever. I've always wanted to homeschool my kids since I've wanted to even have kids, but it's not feasible. So you have to let your child, the schooling system, be your babysitter for your children. And then they can force upon any thoughts,
that's what I don't
conditioning
like,
or indoctrination they want, and then your kid comes home and asks you all these questions, and then they say, well, no, my school's saying if you don't think that I am a girl when it's biologically a boy, and he's like 7, 8, 9, 5, then they suppose in Washington it's now happening there. I think there's a bill been passed or is going to be passed where if the parent doesn't agree that the kid is transitioning and holds the idea that they're a girl or boy, vice versa, whatever, when they're biologically a female or a male, that they will actually be taken away from the parent. That you're forcing the population. That is you want the government to own every part of your life. That's what's happening. This is, and I want to push this down people's throat. This is communism. This is a Marxist tactic that was in Karl Marx's manifesto of political ideologies and critical race theory to collapse a nation and to actually implement things. It's the same idea of like the CRT or whatever, like that BlackRock, Vanguard, why these companies are pushing this inclusivity bullshit is because they won't get funding by major corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard. They're the fucking problem. That is the biggest problem right now. Is I want to make a video about this, but essentially the biggest problem in politics right now is accountability. That people in power can literally do whatever they want, anything. They can have like Trudeau's had scandal after scandal after scandal. They've almost proven that the elections have been rigged twice by the Chinese government. We have Chinese police stations in Canada, all over, that are policing the citizens from China that have come over here to live. And they're policing the people and arresting the Chinese dissidents from the government and putting them in jails. So all of this stuff aligns. And what do you think that the people that are against us, the Axis powers, even though it's all set up, in quotation, I'm putting that everything has been planned out. What do you think when they're superpowers and they look at the United States and Canada and they're like, these people don't even know what a man or a woman is, and they're pushing it within the military, which is now dropping numbers within the military. I don't agree with the military either, thinking you're gonna fucking keep bombing people. You're bombing for peace is like fucking for virginity. You think you're gonna keep bombing people and keep war going, and that's gonna create peace. And the fact that I want to make this point quickly is that the left used to be so against war, anti-war, and it was Republicans and conservatives that are more war, for war. And now you call people far right. The far left has gone so left that they're fucking going right, where they're like wanting war in Ukraine because they're so afraid of Russia and the Orthodox Christianity that Russia pushes. Fuck, man.
Here's another, to tie it back to fucking Ireland again. I forgot about this. It was a little while back. that this was said. So, like in Ireland, we have a president, but the president is more of like he doesn't really like make any decisions.
He's like Joe Biden falling
No, but
down fucking stairs.
dude, it's like even worse. Like our dude looks like something from The Hobbit. He's more like I don't know. Like yeah, like he has like pretty much no say. We have what's called a Taoiseach, which is basically like the prime minister, for example. So
Yeah.
it would be like Trudeau's role. Like he basically runs the country. He's like the figurehead over it all. And we have a. He is not. So one of the big initial issues I think came with the fact that so his name is Leo Varadkar.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if both of his parents, one of his parents is obviously not Irish. They're of some foreign whatever. So he's kind of like a mixed race guy.
Yeah.
So that came up as an issue. And then he's openly gay as well.
Of course.
And he basically runs the country. And he said that a while ago that he was in favor of teaching children about trans issues as young as 6 years of age, as after primary school's voice opposition. So he believes that he's in favor of it being offered at a young primary level. I think the purpose of the education system is to prepare children for life and to teach them about the world. Trans people exist, gay people exist, they always have existed, and I think it makes more sense in schools to inform children about the world around them. This does not have to be a value judgment as to whether it is right or wrong, but it makes sense that we teach them about the real world and give them the information and facts.
The small portion of the population, a very small percentage, and
this is the other part I don't get, right? So then he kind of like, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense to me, but he said he also firmly believes that parental consent should be central to such matters. On parents having the right to withdraw children from certain classes, I do understand why we might make that provision. Ultimately, parents are responsible for their children and they know what's best for them. I think we do need to respect parental choice when it comes to guiding them as to what's best for their children. He believes that there should be an immediate review of the primary education cycle and that there should be a place for trans homework.
That, again, is identity politics, which is a Marxist communist tactic to fucking implement the world into communism and literally deflate a fucking nation, to like cause it to like to collapse. And you have no fucking right to tell parents what they should be teaching their kids. That you have no right, especially for a community, again, that doesn't want to have kids. They're most times nihilist and see the world as like ending and also always an impending doom, and that there is all this has been orchestrated. And for the people that may be a fan of the show that really haven't clued into that yet, I can prove it in numerous ways. I can prove that this is set up and this is a tactic. And once we draw close to this episode, I'm going to talk about what's happening in Canada with the forest fires that have been implemented with fucking drone planes, amongst there's other tactics that you use to be able to cause these forest fires, claiming one thing or another. And this is part of the agenda. If you wonder why over the past 3 years, the majority of Commonwealth countries and countries that are under the WEF of the young globalist leaders, where they penetrated the cabinets, everyone should know this that listens to the show by now, but every country that is controlled by the World Economic Forum has implemented these ideologies within the nation. And this is on purpose because they want to collapse the country and send it into chaos. Crisis after crisis. They've said they never want to waste a good crisis. Right? So now they're using this ideology of like inclusivity, where it's getting to a point where it's now becoming dangerous and a fascist communist tactic to like literally destroy. It's infighting. It's destroying the nation from the inside and imploding it. So people adapt to these, to me, degenerate ideologies. And like I've said, I don't care about what color you are, what fucking sexuality you are, I don't care. I've always joked I have a gay uncle. I don't hate him because he's gay. I hate him because he's liberal. Because he like feeds himself into this ideology of and it's crazy because
I have
people jump on the bandwagon so quickly.
I have several gay friends. Like
I love Anton is on this show. I literally love Anton. Became best friends over the course of doing this show. And we don't always agree or see eye to eye on a lot of the political issues, but we still hold a friendship. So people have to understand that I've never been against anyone that's gay or bi. I brought Anton on the show and didn't even know he was gay because it was not a big thing. Wasn't like I was like, Juan brought it up.
That's always my thing. And like, you know, other than Anton, there's two guys in the UK who I was like super close with, didn't even realize the dudes were married. Had no fucking idea. I spent time with them in Florida several times. I genuinely had no idea. I was like, that'd be really cool to have a best friend that you're that close with. But I had no
they're like jerking each other off.
Yeah, but I had no idea that they were actually like, but because it wasn't an issue if they were or not anyway, I didn't give a fuck. I was like, I don't care.
I don't care either. And that's the thing is, it was once, and that's why people are mad. And that's why there's these boycotts going on and why I will continue. But it's funny because part of these boycotts too is to actually dismantle American-owned businesses and turn them into dust, into nothing. But the thing is, I'm kind of for it because if you can destroy corporations like even Amazon, that's probably not going to happen, but Walmart, Target, these things, and like, you see what they're pushing in Target? I'm not religious, but man, my buddy at work was like, you know, people want to say like why I believe in God and shit like that. Someone that was on the Strange Stogies episode that people should have heard by now that is now on Patreon. We just teased it a bit. He will be back, same with Brett, Sawyer and Brett, but he's like, if people want to know what, you know, but like, you know, if God exists, he's like, well, the devil definitely does. It seems weird considering they were literally pushing Satanism. And I've read the Satanic Bible, and for the long-time fans of the show, I always just say, if I were to align with one ideology under religion, it would probably be Satanism, because it's all about believing in yourself as a god in your own right. At least that was my interpretation. But now I see it's like the Satanic Bible that Anton LaVey wrote is not the same thing the Satanic Church is pushing nowadays in that ideology. So, and it's become worse where they were pushing the fucking clot shots and stuff like that. So you are not some like community that's different. You actually aligned. The Satanic Church stuff is like that. It's more aligned, excuse me, for with the leftist cult ideology than any other religion, because they're pushing against religion, which I just wanted to mention this in my tangent in this whole episode. Is like, I have a lot of religious friends, a lot of friends that are Christian, and know who was beside me when I was out in protests in Toronto with thousands of people fighting against this stuff. Majority of them were religious. So you have these people, and you're freedom for everybody, right? Freedom of inclusivity. So the people that are religious and believe, and always have believed in some substantial God and belief in morals and ethics, now it's going against them. Christians are now the targets. They've burned down fucking tons of churches in Canada, and nothing is ever said. But if it was a mosque, then something would be said. And like I said, there's something wrong with all religions. If you look at Islam, there's a lot wrong with that shit. There's a lot wrong with Catholicism and Christianity, even that too. But I've got along more with people that are Christians than any other religion, and their fight for freedom and their own fundamental beliefs in freedom. But the Target shit, I want to hear your opinion quick before we maybe get into some of the forest fire shit, is that isn't it fucking weird that they were really promoting this Satanist stuff to children, and now there's Satanist clubs within the States, after school Satan programs? A little weird if you ask me.
It's just like, I don't know that. Like, I don't see like, as fucking negative this may sound, like, I don't see a way back from a lot of this. Like, it's like, how do you even, because now we've gotten to the point where, like, you could say, okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. you could say neither side, and even though I don't
Is
feel like
correct.
I don't feel like I'm on a side, but like for example, neither side of the argument can see any sense in the other ones. So like me, for example, what I'm
Yeah,
saying, I feel like is quite is quite reasonable and rational. Like
me too.
I don't necessarily want to stop anybody from doing what they want to do with
Fundamental
themselves.
freedom of belief.
Yeah, like if you want to do something with yourself, if you feel like you're a different gender or this or that, if you want to go through a sex change, if you want to be gay, if you want to be straight, if you want to be lesbian, if you want to be bisexual, whatever you want to be,
As long as you're
that's
a
fine.
consenting adult, I don't care.
But it's just when we're bringing other aspects like children and like now we have to like restructure society to allow for like, oh, this is, and my question is then there is no end to that because
No, because
then the
it could be
next thing, like,
anything. It's
yeah,
pedophilia.
because like it's like, well, then we do that and then it's like, well, like, pedophiles don't have a, a platform. We need to like figure out how to figure that out.
They're
And
trying to
I'm not
hijack
trying
that
to,
movement, man.
this is something I want to make really, really clear because lots of people do this where they go, oh, you mentioned pedophiles with trans people. No, 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 no. Don't, I'm only using that as an example of like how crazy this stuff can get. Like, for example, you know, is it going to get to the stage where I can literally say anything and everybody else has to bend and conform to what I say?
And that is the issue, right? Is like when you have a community that encompasses all these ideologies under one umbrella, and to me, I don't care what people think, it is a safe haven for people with severely horrible and deteriorating mental health, and they're making it normal to be crazy. And that's why my entire life I have felt like I am the only sane person in an insane asylum. If you're someone that's glued into this stuff and has been in tuned with this stuff since I was like 14 or 15, as I have, where I've seen through this stuff, had my own struggles, been through my own personal shit, and still understood that something inherently wrong was going on with the earth, you feel like you're the only sane person in this mass insane asylum, is the way I like to put it.
Like I've seen, and I'm not saying this isn't this isn't like a baseline for how all these experiences go, but like I've seen multiple, like probably in excess of 100 different clips and stuff. And yes, I know I have no real context as to what the situation was, but like I've seen people get assaulted, punched in the head, fucking stabbed for mistakenly misgendering people.
Yeah, look what happened to fucking whatever his name is, Sign Dan or whatever. This guy that goes around with a sign on him and he'll just stand in front of a protest. This guy's wild. He's got the balls of steel, bro. He went to one of the LGBT pride protests and he put like children cannot consent, and he just stood there and some guy was interviewing him and people were yelling in his face and like getting on him and yelling at him, and he was just talking in the interview, he's like, yeah, I just try to ignore it, and someone was like literally screaming beside his face, and then some trans woman with the and then you like people joke about, you see the testosterone from the man come out, and the person attacks whatever his name is, Billboard Dan or whatever, and or Sign Dan, I can't remember his name, and they literally throw him to the ground, punch him. There was, and this was in Canada, I think, there was a female cop that was caught on camera laughing about him being assaulted. And this has happened
And
numerous times. Josh Alexander was the kid I was talking about. That's his name. About the kid that got arrested for protesting against in a Catholic school about gender ideologies and saying that there's two genders. And he was protesting, and they do this on purpose. That they stand with inside the group and actually advocate them to assault them to prove that these people are violent, radicalized youth. And you see these people that literally they're pushing him, taking his hat, stomping on the ground. This is "Make America or Canada Great great again because they're starting to work hats like that where it's like make Canada great again, even though I'm not necessarily on the side of Trump. But according to a lot of people, he did way more for the States and had peace in the world more than anybody else. So they do that, like, and then you see these people that are, why I mentioned it even on the Scream episode, is like they're radicalizing the fucking youth, bro. They're doing this on purpose.
It's just bizarre to me. I think the hardest thing I have to do is, right, and maybe I'm in the minority of feeling like this, where I care about all these issues, but in another way I like don't care, in the sense of like basically mirroring what you've said. Like I don't care if you're gay, I don't care if you're lesbian, I don't and I don't mean that as in like
fundamental freedom is what I believe in.
And I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, I don't care, I don't give a fuck if you guys live or die, and if you get stomped out every day and you get oppressed and all. I don't mean it in that way. I just mean that it's not like something. The first thing that comes into my head when I meet a person is, I wonder if they're gay now, because if they are, then I can't like them. Or I wonder if they think they're fucking trans, I'm going to punch the head off them if they're trans, or I can't talk to them. That doesn't come into my head. But what freaks me out is that it's becoming increasingly more illegal or frowned upon.
Hate speech to call out the hypocrisy of the left
just
side.
the way like they have, that community have their opinion on how they see the world, or how the world should work with them in it, right? And that's fair enough, right? That's their opinion, that's how they see it. But why is me thinking that is incorrect, and I have my own opinion? That no. I need to go and fucking kill myself, and I need to go and die.
Truth. It's like, no, there's one fucking truth.
And the way out of it, the issue then I have is the way out of it then is to go, oh, you would say that though as like a 30-year-old white guy.
Yeah, they always bring that up. I argued with somebody, and I don't do this often, but I like to like kind of poke the bear a bit on certain social commentaries and stuff like that. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but then this woman attacked me. This black woman attacked me and said, like, you're according to some fucking cis white male or whatever. And I just made the point of like, where did the money go from Black Lives Matter? Where'd it go? Because they like to push this thing of, and I was like, because she called me a privileged white male, and I was like, do you understand that this idea of privilege and this white privilege narrative is another communist tactic that you can research in history and understand that is actually implemented and forced upon a population to make you feel different than, less than. People like Tom McDonald that has made millions and millions of dollars being an independent artist, calling out this stuff, and tons of people, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, share his opinions. And I've had tons of black friends that do not see me in the light of what people say, and they just like, you're a privileged white guy. And I'm like, you don't know what the fuck I've walked through in my life, what shoes I've had to fill, and the life that I've had to exist in. And do you understand, and people that understand this, do you know how many, do you know the majority of homeless people are white? For everybody out there, that is a fucking huge statistic within Canada, United States, is a majority of people that are homeless living on the streets are white people. And when I see people begging for change and grifting and all that shit, and panhandling, it's white people. Yes, there's some people that are minorities and black and white, Hispanic or whatever, but a lot of them are white. And this whole thing of like having you see people in a different color or a different sexuality is all part of a divide and conquer communist tactic. Nobody cares what dick you suck or what vagina you want to eat. Behind closed doors, when it comes to sexuality specifically, too, who you love is who you love. And I understand back in the day, there was people that are oppressed and all that stuff. But in Canada, at least, I will say this for a fact. You are not oppressed. Cry me a fucking river. I know people won't like this opinion. Cry me a river. You're not oppressed. If I go and protest this weird shit that you want to do in front of children, these drag queen story time hour shit, which is, people are like, oh, drag queens have always existed. They've always done this, drag queens existed and started within nightclubs, in gay clubs, in underground clubs. where they did very overtly sexual humor, and tons of stuff like that. It's literally what it's based on. Look in the history. In disco clubs, they would go underground clubs. It is based on something for adults that is sexualized. So you want to wear this, and now the feminist movement has been hijacked also, but a lot of people and women are starting to stand up against this stuff because you are making a mockery of what it is to be a woman. That's what it is. You are over-exaggerating your features with makeup and big weird hair and actually making fun of women and people like Dylan Mulvaney who actually take a stereotypical version of what a woman is and then saying that they need to do that. Not all women wear makeup. Why is this whole thing about all these trans people need to like cover their entire face with makeup? Not all women wear makeup. Some people just naturally just don't do it because they don't need to. It makes no sense. And I want people to be very clear and understanding what I'm saying is this is a tactic to destroy the freedoms that you value so much and this inclusivity of freedom that you want so much.
And also the other fact is, I think creating such a complex issue like this, it only plays out for like the bigger picture. So while all of us do all this and go back and forth, and
they're laundering money.
we both know, right, that they're like on like a standard like average
Finally smoke some
citizen,
weed.
like an average standard citizen platform, there is no way and there is no amount of podcasts, conversations, articles, research, documentaries that can ever solve this issue. No. From where we're at right now. Like us talking about this, somebody on the other side of the coin is not going to listen to this and go, wow, I've been enlightened. Much the same as we're not going to listen to the other side and go, wow, I've changed all my ideas right now.
I've tried to listen. Me and Anton have gotten these conversations.
It plays into, I think, a much bigger issue that a lot of people are missing the point of, that we're all, while we may all be arguing and having all this, we're all getting fucked in the ass.
No, these people are literally laughing. There's that meme of all the lizards laughing. They're laughing at us as we infight. And there's people within the LGBT and all these different communities, even like the black community or whatever, any community that has been tribalized to think in a certain way and to think that you are different and you are oppressed. They make you feel oppressed and they radicalize you to infight and fight against a different group of people. This has been a tactic since this earth has existed, bro. Like, and people seem to not understand this. And I try to make my point on the show, but I always try to make it where we're lighthearted. We're talking about, we're joking around. And for once, I thought I want to do a rant episode and put it out in the airwaves to understand that, like, for the people that do enjoy this conversation, I do have a plan on doing a political show when I can handle it. Because like I said before, we do this all by ourselves. I spend a lot of money creating this show and putting it out there, and we don't run ads. I might switch podcast platforms to run some ads and stuff like that so I can maybe pay off some of the shit that I put into the show, but I spend hundreds of dollars a year on this show to put it out there. And that's why I implore people to buy merch and stuff like that. Like, we're going to probably stick with TeePublic because I got my new shirt with the new design and my new sweater from TeePublic within 3-4 days. And then when I went Teespring, which were trying different people, it came in like 2-3 weeks. So, and that's why I implore people to rep our merch. But like, I'm sure people that know of me and have heard my political commentary and stuff like that on what I do on like TikTok and Instagram, and every time I'm on mushrooms, I will say that, like, I think about that my face has been shared with me yelling about political issues thousands of times. But at the end of the day, I'm going to die one day. And what do I want to leave here? I want to make sure that my kid knew that I stood up for the things that I thought was right. And I truly, and it doesn't matter about being right or wrong, but I truly believe that my side of the coin is right. And that we have been, because listen to me, I just want to say this. I believe in fundamental freedom, everybody. I don't care what you do. You should be able to do what you want, when you want, say what you want, say about whatever political issue you want. That's freedom of speech is fundamental for a democracy, quotations, but democracy is a lie to begin with. But all these people in power that are laundering children, bro, 85,000 children have went missing at the border, and more happen every single day. Nobody cares. Nobody's asking for the client list of the few small people of the Jeffrey Epstein client. Nobody cares. They're too busy being like, I'm mad because I think I'm a fucking woman when I'm a man.
And that's it. Like, and and it's scary to think, and people might say like, oh, it's ridiculous or whatever what you're saying, but like, you know,
I can prove what I'm saying.
like I said, uh, you know, like to what end? Like, this is an endless thing in a way, because okay, let's say tomorrow we create this new fucking outlook that oh well, then horror films are obviously skewing the population and they make violent people and the this and the that, and all these horror movies are against the trans community and against this and that and all. So then I've got to chop my two fucking arms off and go and throw myself off a bridge somewhere
Yeah, I know, and that's like
because
I heard actually Anton sent me this about what's his name, Ty Wakiti or whatever, that guy that makes the Marvel films. And he said something about how like you can't have every individual represented in every movie. It's impossible. No one grew up like that. Like I grew up with a lot of indigenous friends, surprisingly, actually. Like tons of I've had tons of black friends, tons of indigenous friends. A lot of my friends were actually native and stuff like that. And look, some, like a lot of them were white too. But the thing is, nobody had like, I didn't have an Asian, a black friend, a gay friend, a trans friend, a this, a that, and then to represent all of that within a movie or something doesn't make sense.
and like to second that point, that sounds the very same as my upbringing, and it didn't matter anyway. I was just
I
friends with
never
who I was
cared.
friends with. I played with whatever kids I played with. It didn't matter if they were fucking gay, straight, yellow, green, blue. I didn't give a fuck if they had both parents in the
Do
house,
you
if it
also
was a
like
broken
punk
home.
music and don't really like the government? Okay,
Like,
let's hang out.
you know what I mean? It didn't matter. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I came from a broken home. It was like where like I basically grew up with my grandparents. My parents were like, around, but it was like I was kind of with them more. And then I was like friends with people that had, just their mother at home. I had some friends that just had their dad at home, all different situations.
Yeah.
It didn't fucking
I
matter.
actually, I've told you this, and that people have heard this on the show too, is I grew up with a lot of poor friends. A lot
Same,
of the friends
same.
I got along with were poor and had drug addict parents. I have a buddy, I'm not going to mention his name, one of my best friends. I've known him since grade 6. My mom took care of him for an entire summer. He was at my house every single day because his parents were drug addicts. So I grew up with a lot of that. One of my best friends that I grew up with, another one. I would go into his house. His parents would be there smoking cigarettes at the table. Didn't work. Would be like, don't smoke cigarettes. Their house smelled like fucking shit. There was newspaper everywhere. They hoarded everything. They had dogs. I never saw these dogs out of the cages. And they would just shit on this newspaper at this cage. And I could see the pain in my buddy's eyes all the time. But we were teenagers. And I couldn't be like, and then you'd see even, I didn't grow up rich whatsoever. I grew up in like a duplex. I grew up like what you would call middle class, probably even lower than the middle class bar. My mom got mad when I said I grew up mediocre, but that's the truth of the matter. Is my friends that were even poor would look at even what I had, and then I had a friend that had a pool in his house, and he would dress with ripped shirts, and like stuff so he could fit in with us. And when I went to the mall the one time with him, I got like 10, $20, and his parents were just handing him $100 bills to go shopping, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck that's like, man. And he would literally dress poor because he wanted to fit in. So he dressed like ripped skater clothes like we all had. And then when we saw his house, we were like, man, you're not the same as us.
It,
But
and
we still were
again, like,
friends.
that's maybe why I'm drawn to some of this stuff. I've always been a bit of a, and
Or
it's,
yeah.
I
Me
never,
too.
I never say it because it's not like, oh my God, I'm such an outlier. I'm so different from
Yeah.
anyone, man. I'm so rad. But it's like, I've never really been like I was never the cool kid. I was never the center of attention. I never wanted to be anyway.
Me either.
But like, this isn't like coming from a place of like, I was the star quarterback in school and like had
No.
all the hot chicks and like dated all the cheerleaders and I had
I
lots of
was a
money and my family
scumbag,
was
man.
perfect.
I
I
was
was just
dressed
a
like I was a blood.
shitbag. Yeah, I was just like a shitbag kid that like didn't know what the fuck I
Dude,
was
the
doing.
first time I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, which we'll be getting into on First Class Horror very soon, we have commentaries, we have a lot of stuff coming for that. Is that one of the first times I ever watched Nightmare on Elm Street? The very first horror movie I watched was in my brother's friend's house. This kid Calvin, and he came from a super impoverished, low income family, and the mom was this fat, obese, like drug addict. The dad was gone. They could do whatever they want. This kid literally had like safety pins all in his face because he couldn't afford piercing, so he'd do it himself. And that's the first time I fucking watched a horror movie. And this place was like, Not like, ugh. My mom saw what I was sitting in when watching that movie. She would have freaked out, right? And mom did the best she could, but we were just like, mom came from Toronto from being she was a nurse in the Merge in Toronto and saw horrific things. And we moved to a smaller town to get out of the city. And, we didn't have a lot. Mom was working at Tim Hortons after being a fucking nurse in a
But that's the
Merge.
thing, like, and I mean, people do their best, and this isn't none of this conversation and none of the conversations I think we've ever had, whether it's been on the show or off the show, they're not coming from like an almighty place or
No,
anything. That's not
no.
where this is coming from. It's just there's a few fundamental core beliefs there. I think that like everybody should be entitled to be able to express themselves, do what they want to do. Like you said, like so long as you're not hurting somebody else or it's consensual or whatever, things like that. I don't think that's that much to ask for, really.
No, and if you look at the other side, I want to end this quickly on two things before we end this, but I just want to say, like, if you look on the left and the people that are radicalized, especially within that fucking cult community, to be honest, a lot of them are privileged. A lot of them are not doing anything. They're bored. Even fucking surprisingly, Jeffree Star, which I was emo. I heard about Jeffree Star. I listened to like one or two of his songs when I was like 12, 13 when I was like emo. And he was calling it, he's like, fucking this pronoun shit we just made up all of a sudden during COVID when everyone was bored. And if you look at the people that are being radicalized in these movements, especially recently, are a bunch of privileged young white kids and college kids. The colleges are actually promoting this. So I want to bring it to a close, and everyone can see that if you have eyes, you can see what is happening. Was it real eyes, realize, real lies? Feel me?
Well done.
So
that was good.
this is only recently, and this is only on May 29th. So look at the fires that are being caused all around Canada. And this is not even what it is today. But if you look where I am, and if I can, I don't know if I can zoom this in any further. If you see down that where Toronto is, that's where I am. And now see all that blue? That's not blue anymore. Quebec is literally on fire, and 130 fires, 130 fires within like overnight, within a couple days. All these fires are being created. And what we know after COVID is that crisis after crisis, they create like problem, like David Icke says, problem, reaction, solution. You create a problem. The people in establishments in power do this, and they've done this for a long time. They create the problem out of nowhere, and they institute it towards an entire nation. They cause everyone to freak out and have a reaction. We need justice. They make you beg for a solution from the government, and then they give you the solution that they very well fucking from the problem they created. And this is what's happening, and people don't even fucking notice. And there's so many people that are like, what people are like, and I don't use this that often, but NPCs. They're like just fucking like the characters in the game that just stand there and go along with everyone. There's so many fucking people like that, and it's crazy. And more people are waking up, and I've known this for 15 years, everybody. I've known something was wrong, probably longer than that. So I was a kid, a child. I knew that something was inherently wrong with this planet and the people in power. And I think that they've created they use drone planes to do control fires and to do backburns where they're claiming to like, we're going to stop the fire before it gets to a residential area. Meanwhile, they're claiming all this shit. And you didn't know about this, but so the fire that was caused in Alberta, okay, get this, wild shit. They wanted to do, they got a bunch of women, right, that were firefighters. Mm-hmm. This is a true story. At least what they're telling the public, so who knows of the actual truth. And I looked this up because there were people talking about it. I made sure I looked it up. They had this inclusivity thing in Alberta where they wanted to show that women firefighters could do the same jobs that men could do. And the fire got out of control. And that's literally what started this huge fire in Alberta because they couldn't keep up with it. And this is what I'm saying. I believe that women and men can be equal in most things. And they should be on an equal playing field of a lot of things. But men are inherently stronger than women. That is a fact. And men will always be the protector. That is the way this is supposed to go if everything got erased tomorrow. and we went back to living in caves, guess what would happen?
And it, like, a lot of people probably roll their eyes at this, but there's not been too much about him recently, obviously, because all the issues he fucking had. But like Andrew Tate, for example, he was notorious for saying, when shit hits the fan, when shit goes wrong, when there's an issue, who do you look to?
What
The man.
Yeah, it's
Men.
true. And Andrew Tate is definitely misogynistic in a lot of the things he said.
100%.
But there is some truth within that. Like there's truth within lots of things people say. And the thing is, okay, Ukraine, for an example, where'd they send all the women and children? Out of the country, supposedly. But I've seen footage saying otherwise. But supposedly what they've told us is that the men from 18 to like, I think it was like 65 or 55 or something like that. It was an astronomical number of 18 to 65, I think. All the men had to stay, and they gave them rifles to fight against the Russians, and then they end up killing each other, actually, which is wild. People would be like, you fucked my wife like 2 years ago, and then he shot him. That stuff like that happened too. But the thing is, that's a factual thing. The women and children were sent off, and the men were forced to fight. It's happened in every fucking war. And women can fight within wars. I'm not disputing that at all. I do think that there is merit in that, but if shit does really hit the fan, women are nurturing, protecting. That's what their inherent nature is. And I believe this. It's in their nature, just like it's in men's nature to have testosterone and to be angry and want to fight and defeat the enemy. It's in our blood, and it will never change, ever. And at least until we're in some fucking stupid robot body with this transhumanism shit, because all of this stuff is leading into like, oh, we'll just put a fucking microchip in your brain. All these fires being caused by the government. This is on purpose. This is a fucking climate. Let's just say quotations. Let's speculate that all this is being created by the government to, perpetrate a certain message or an ideology of climate change to enforce people to believe that they're under some sort of crisis, so they can put them in lockdowns into 15-minute cities. Because is that not happening in Ireland? It's happening in Britain. Brexit fucking that's the place, right? Brexit, they were blocking off their roads and shit.
I mean, sometimes I even wonder, right? And I know we're going to finish this up in a second, but
I'm going to leave it on something from this book.
Sometimes I even wonder, I'm like, has it gotten to the stage where like even some of these conspiracies, are they like part of the conspiracy that I'm
100%.
that I'm not looking at, if you get what I mean?
No, that is part of it too. Conspiracy theory was coined by the CIA to actually discredit people for actually what Tom MacDonald says, which I do like, is conspiracy theories is the truth that scares the hell out of the nation, which is quite true. And the thing is, there is definitely implemented conspiracy theories that are like, did the left infiltrate the right to push certain things? Why, especially in Canada, conservatives are much more centrist leaning in the middle to things than they are conservatives. And then the left is so far left, and they claim that we're far right. You know how many times I've been called a far right extremist or you're right winged, or a lot of times people are like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, aren't you? And I'm like, I'm in fucking Canada. I don't like any government. I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in that shit. I believe in small communities. You know, like basic living, and people go, that's some form of communism. No, I believe in having small communities where people take care of each other. They elect a leader that they think is strong enough to be able to do that. You do not need one centralized government to funnel in money and to control a population based on that. That worked way back in the day, maybe, but even in Canada and the United States, it's happening. It's supposed to be the United States. Every state was supposed to be different. That's how it started. It was like, we were united. All these different states, all these different ideologies were all united under one specific thing of like, oh, we're going to work together and we will do the trade market together. We will trade with other countries and other places and within our own states to be able to make profit. And that's how it started. And it's supposed to be, that's why when COVID hit, you saw like Florida made its stance, certain certain states made their stance of they're going to allow freedom, stuff like that, and then they had the lowest deaths and all this stuff. So people have to take clue into that. That if supposedly if so I'm getting a little rant, but supposedly if Trudeau does get elected again, I've heard that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba will all like if Saskatchewan and Alberta does it, Manitoba will follow, and they will literally separate and create their own thing. And I think that's needed at this point.
That's interesting.
Because a lot of our votes in Parliament, a lot of the things and how people get seats, it's all rigged. I guarantee it's all rigged. I can prove it. It's also now we have the Chinese. There's someone who Trudeau praised to love, the Chinese, and now they're literally putting up police stations. There's tons of them in Canada, police stations to police the people. Chinese specifically, that's what they're saying. And then it's just like, oh, but and they've influenced our elections. They've rigged our elections in favor of the Liberal Party. So, and they're doing this right now. It's like no one's being held accountable. Have you ever seen any of that stuff that I post about this shit? About the Beijing? It's fucking crazy. I know this is tiring, but I can't read this.
It's just like my issue with a lot of this sometimes is I've like in recent years tried to like reel back just because I felt like it was literally like I'd have like chest pains because I was like, this shit annoys me so much, and I like can't figure out a way to like make it like somewhat okay in my head. If that
That's what
makes
got
sense.
me, bro. That's what got me, man.
And
I've
it's
been
just
here
like
forever doing this shit. That's
but
what
it's
I
just like so
understand.
hard not to get like, and I don't even mean like violent or anything like that, but it's so hard not to get like super like passionate and aggravated about certain things.
Dude, do
And
you
like,
see why I yell at my fucking phone all the time? It's so funny because like I always like my buddy at work, Aaron, was like another Aaron. I referred to as like you're Aaron in Ireland, and then Aaron from work when I'm talking about you guys to Chelsea. And he's like, don't you get he's like, what have you like thought about what your neighbors probably think of you when you're always like yelling at your phone in the backyard? And I'm like, I don't really notice if they even saw me because like our fence is pretty much just bush. Like I'm surrounded by like a bush, like that's our fence essentially is like forestry because I'm like in the middle of the country, and then I'm the one that was doing this video, and I noticed that somebody from next door was tanning on their like pool thing.
nice.
I was like, I don't even know what I was yelling about, but I truly don't care either, and I have to like if people have like pay attention to this show. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've learned to really not care about what people think. And it was thanks. People could say what they want, but it was thanks to one man, David Icke, that really taught me to be like, who gives a fuck what these people think? I've read into this stuff. I know the knowledge. Do the knowledge, and you will succeed in intelligence, right? Because there's a big difference from being educated, which is indoctrination, and actually being having intelligence, having critical thinking. But it's just funny because, you know, this is why I do the show though, is like, I want to talk about fun, conspiracy, cryptids, paranormal, true crime. I want to do it, still have my opinion, joke around, but always be lighthearted. So you're hearing like how I am in everyday life, so to speak, when I talk about these issues with my friends and family. And a lot of times, some people in my family, me and my mom, I've said this before on the show, get in a lot of arguments and don't talk to each other sometimes for like a month or two because she's like, oh, I'm conservative. No, you're not going to. Fucking I'm very likely left-centered, man. You're very leftist in the way you speak. And then there's like, no, I vote conservative because of this. And it's like, but you sound when you talk like a leftist.
And this is the fucking like this is what I angers me sometimes then because that's what's part of the bigger picture. And I mean, I've had that similar thing, and that's why I think since COVID, I really tried to reel it back because I thought COVID was going to pull me back into that. Like I was like at one point at the stage where I would literally be willing to fall out with anybody.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Like,
and I said that to people.
Yeah, on like the flip of an argument like that, and then I
This is
keep
what they want.
Yeah, then sometimes I sit back down after I've calmed down a bit and I'm like, fuck,
That's
this
it.
is like exactly like what the part of the, like I'm willing to fall out with someone who I'm close with in my personal life over this shit. And I was like, now I'm in that matrix they've created for all of us. We're in like this
Yeah,
big
and it's just
hamster
like,
wheel
you know,
and we're
yeah.
just fucking
I remember venting to Juan at one point where I was like talking about like arguing with my mom because he felt it too, and even the people in his life. This is before he like his show like fucking took off, and Juan's doing well, and I applaud him for it. Honestly, like me and Juan still talk. He's so big into the homunculus shit that I told him I want him to come on and tell Billy about it. I was like, we have to do the thing where you talk about this, the magic and the occultist, like alchemical, like magical shit, because he knows this stuff very well. Where I try to grab a big frame of mind of everything, but he's right. The occultism is in everything. But I was like, I think it'd be funny to hear you come on and talk about this stuff and tell Billy about it, because Billy's reaction would be, I think, worth it for the show. But like, and I was talking about like arguing with my mom, and he was talking about, I think, talking to his dad or his mom about the shit. And he was like, this is what they want though, dude. They want us to divide ourselves and to create like division. Divide and conquer is such a big tactic. And people like Trudeau, and there's video footage of this, of him talking about how to get votes and how to get in powers, literally to like radicalize people and cause hate and division. And he admits it in his earlier speeches years ago. And then now it's being brought out, and people are like, the people that support that guy fucking blows my mind though. When people like advocate for their own enslavement.
Some people feel safer that way.
I know, their own enslavement, not in slavery. To bring this to an end, I want to read this from Children of the Matrix by David Icke. There's many things I'm probably going to read for videos on my political account. Reptilian Tom, if people want to hear me yell at my phone, it's not going to exist forever. I do this for a while, and then eventually I will probably just really focus on the show, and my political thing will be left for a new podcast eventually. And this might happen within a year or two, but like I said, I spent a lot of time doing this show. This is called The Sheeple. This is from the book. It's very interesting. The self-policing of the human herd goes far deeper than people in uniform or administrations of government. It starts with conditioned parents who impose their conditioning on their children and pressure them to follow their religious, political, economic, or cultural norms. There is no more extreme example of this than those who insist their offspring succumb to arranged marriages because of the rules of their ludicrous religions, or the children of Jehovah's Witnesses who have denied life-saving blood transfusions because their brain-dead parents insist on conducting every aspect of their lives according to the contrary dictates of the book, providing stories of pure fantasy. So it's funny because I have a friend that's a Jehovah's Witness, but he got the shot. So I'm like, kind of weird though. Shouldn't you be against that stuff? And he, like, people in his religion were doing it. And it's just like, that's kind of contradictory. The creation of the mental and emotional sheep pen of norms, which imprisons 99% of the population of humanity, goes minute by minute in subtle and less subtle ways. There are children of Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Hindu parents who don't accept their religion, but still follow it because they don't want to upset their family. They're almost universally in fear of what people think if we speak in a different version of reality or live in a different kind of life. Note that the fear of those who wish to break out of the sheep pen is not the fear of what the elite families, the Illuminati and Illuminati ones, will think of them. So that's an interesting quote if you hear what he said. He said that if you go against your family and stuff like that, you'll have fear of what your family thinks. But the people in power truly don't care. Like, they're doing this on purpose, right? So most have no idea that such network exists. No, the fear is what for their mother or father will think. That's what the fear is based on. Or their friends or workmates. The very people who are conditioned by the system to stay in the pen. They're policing themselves. That's what happening today. Today, they were doing this to make ourselves police each other. The sheep are keeping the other sheep in line and making life unpleasant for anyone who tries to escape. It is also easy for a small group of interbreeding family bloodlines to control their lives, in other words, their minds of billions. Once the key institutions of the information are in place, as they have been for thousands of years in various forms, there's not enough of these manipulators and their stooges to control the population physically. So they have created a structure in which humanity controls themselves through mental and emotional impositions. How true is that? This is why I love David Icke. Once you have the herd mentality policing itself, there is a third phase that entraps of human consciousness, traps you in human consciousness. You create factions within the herd and set them at war with each other. And I'm telling you, this was wrote like a long time ago. Like The Children of the Matrix is one of his first books. If I can actually find 2001. Everybody, 2001. This was published and put out
22 years ago. And he probably wrote that shit like probably 2 years before that as well.
Yeah. So, creating different belief systems which are not different at all and bringing them into conflict. These belief systems are known as religions, political parties, economic theories, countries, cultures, and isms. So right in the isms part of endless variety. These beliefs are perceived as the opposites. When I point out in my book, I am free, I am me, I am free, and how the opposites impose each other or whatever, the versions of reality are possible within the pen and is limited to that contains no opposites. So the elites have created the perception of them to manufacture the division that allows them to divide and rule. I mean, what's the difference between a Christian bishop, a Jewish rabbi, a Muslim, or a Hindu priest, or a follower of Buddha, imposing their beliefs onto children and others? There is none, because while the beliefs they seek to indoctrinate may slightly be different, often very slightly or overly, the themes are the exact same. It's the same fucking thing. And I could go on and on. So like, let me summarize, as he says. Let me summarize the scam. You need to first imprison the human mind with rigid beliefs and a fundamental limited sense of reality, the sheep pen. It doesn't matter much what beliefs may be, so long as they're rigid and discourage free thought and open-minded questions. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Hinduism, all in the same rest, each make their own contribution to the human servitude while apparently claiming different truths. You encourage those who follow these rigid beliefs to impose them on others and make life very difficult and unpleasant for anyone who does not conform. You bring these beliefs into conflict, so ensuring that the divide and the rule they rule you so desperately that you need control by the few. So they make you want control. As I've said before, they make you beg for the help of the people in power. While the masses are so busy fighting each other and seeking to impose their beliefs and views on each other, they don't see that the Illuminati have the strings attached to all of them. Humans are like moths buzzing around a light, and so mesmerized by their religious beliefs that the football scores and the latest row on soap operas, or the price of frickin' beer. He actually says frickin', which is fun. They all fail to notice the preparations beginning to smash them in the arse with a swatter. So the fact that they do this stuff and implement this stuff, and this is, I'm just getting into this book, and I have two other of his. I have one of his books, like everything that you didn't need to know, that you didn't know that you, whatever. But I'm going on the Children of Matrix, and then I have the Phantom Self, and then all that you needed to know but didn't, or something like that. And this boy is thick. And I gotta make sure I don't lose my spot because that's where I am. And it's honestly crazy. Fucking controlled opposition or not, I've always liked David Icke. I'm gonna try to get him on the show very soon. I've sent another email out, and I just gotta put together something for them. And they're talking about maybe July that they're starting to open up spots. So who knows? But I'm gonna make it well known that I was like, I'm a big fan, bro. Like, he woke me up.
That'd be wild.
He woke me up. Dude, what do you think about that? Isn't that weird? Very, and like, I messed up a couple times, but like, even the way he words things is kind of weird at times. It gets a little muddy, but like, what he says to me is crazy how it's so important, even in this book and the stuff that I'm reading and what's happening today is like universally this, like, it's so on point, dude.
But like, there's another guy who they've like discredited or whatever.
Yeah, he can.
You know,
You can't
they've
even
made
find
him
him on
look
podcast
insane.
networks. If you look up David Icke's name, you'll find podcasts that he's been on like podcast platforms or whatever. But you don't like his show and stuff like that, like Doc Connecting with David Icke. You can't download it. I've like tried to subscribe to his show and then download it. I couldn't do it. It wouldn't let me download the episodes. Isn't that weird?
I mean, he got fucking banned from the Netherlands last year.
I know, and he's trying to fight against it because it's not right.
But it's just like, it's just fucking like, I have a couple of his books as well. I have that.
How was the 9/11 one? Because I heard him talking about that on London Real, and it sounded like it was going to be probably pretty good.
Yeah, I'm like, again, like the 9/11 one
huge.
is like fucking ridiculous size. But again, like it's, I don't want to say like, oh, it's all things I already knew, but it is one of those
I
things
know.
where you're going like, huh,
Mhm.
weird
A
how
lot of
all
it,
this kind of, now look,
yeah.
don't get me wrong, I will
Highlight
say
that book though. Highlight it so we can
some
we can
of
do
the
an episode.
stuff that he says, I will say it can seem a bit like, I can see how people could use maybe little sound bites of certain things he says to be like, look, this guy's talking about some weird fucking brain eating lizard. He's obviously full of shit.
Mm.
And it's unfortunate because I think it's easy for the opposition to kind of, take
Oh
one
yeah,
small
because he
thing
believes
out
in
of
lizard
context
people. Yeah, 100%. Or it's like,
and be
oh, it's
like,
actually based on Jewish people. All that type
and
of
be
shit.
like, oh, he's obviously fucking full of shit. This guy is like away with the fairies. He has no idea what he's talking about. But like some of just like the really basic, simple things he says, and you're like, huh,
Makes
that's like,
sense.
yeah.
And the thing is, people can claim what they want. I have seen things in this world. Go back to how many times I've mentioned my shadow people experience. And if you heard the Strange Stogies episode, Brett's experience when he was in the astral world, which I believe him. And I've talked to tons of other people. Shane from Inquirers of Reality saw someone pull down their mask during COVID and he saw their face glitch. Being sober, being in a, like, he was walking around like some sort of festival or something like that, and he was talking about the reptilians to his girlfriend, and then he saw someone in a fucking like cloth mask do this, Aaron, pull down the mask, and he said that he saw like scaly skin, almost like this, whatever this entity or person was like, shut the fuck up. People can believe in whatever they want to believe in, even if you're religious and you want to call them demons. There is some evil energy that exists with outside of our reality, and people have to get very used to that because it's very real. This idea that all these children go missing a year, which is another episode for another time, but like, this is not by accident. This is not just in some weird orchestrating crazy sex ring thing. It goes beyond that. It literally has to, because if that is it and we are just deprived immoral creatures, then there is no point to fucking life. There is something beyond this, and I feel like everyone that has any critical thinking or any intelligence at all can feel it in their body that there's something beyond this. And I've seen enough proof in my lifetime and the things that I've seen when I'm completely sober to know that there is something outside of our reality. And even when I was on mushrooms recently, I tried to look through the fractals or the shatters or whatever to see if, because something's always had a hold of me my entire life, some sort of like dark energy. And I try to look through the fractals, this weird 3D invisible objects that you see when you're on mushrooms. And I swore I saw some sort of fucking like demonic like face thing. And I was like, you don't own me. You don't control me. And I was just on, to end this, you'll find this interesting. Oh, it's kind of fun. On Forbidden Knowledge News, I was just on the show with Chris, and he pronounced your name wrong, which is okay. He called you like A-Rod or something like that, but it's fine.
I've heard worse,
Yeah.
Heard worse.
And so he was saying that he talked to a dude that like used psychedelics regularly, and he's like, and he had his own experiences too, and you can hear it kind of on the episode. Is like he went during a Reiki session on mushroom or something like that. His girlfriend turned into a lizard. And like, it's fucking crazy. And she like was like, when they were trying to banish this energy from him, this thing that took hold of him, and he saw her shift, and it was trying to latch on and was like, you need to like be part of my life. Like, I've helped you through everything. It was trying to like bait him into like allowing that energy to stay in his life. And he's saying he was talking to a dude. Check this out. Is on mushrooms, like used the psychedelics, and like me. I've never seen anything out of the ordinary on mushrooms. Other than the weird fractals and, waves and things, you never see like things walking around or creatures or weird stuff like that. You're more or less to see the like energy in plants and life breathing. And he knew someone he had an interview with, and they went to a kid's birthday party. They're like coming down off mushrooms, and there's a lot of people around this party, and he saw a couple of gray aliens standing in the fucking room, didn't know that they noticed him, and they were looking at him like, how does he see us? And this guy, according to Chris, stuff like that, is a credible, normal dude and had this far out crazy experience. And he said that they didn't even understand that he was like, how do you notice us, kind of thing? And they were just observing this kid's birthday party. If you were something that was outside of a reality or whatever, or trying to observe us, you would do things like that. And he's like, so must be something tapped into that mushroom consciousness. Isn't that wild?
That'd freak me out.
That'd freak me out. I don't even know how to handle that shit, dude. Like, I would be like, Chelsea, like, I'd freak out because I'd be like, I've done mushrooms how many times? Never seen. I see like weird patterns and things like, it looks like tribal patterns that are like 3D and shit, and weird stuff that I can't explain, but it proves to me that there's something beyond our reality for sure. But to see physical beings, I couldn't imagine. And I do think it's because you tap into a higher level of consciousness. I do believe you tap into the plant consciousness and the earth consciousness, but you exist in a higher frequency. A lot of times when I'm in a fairly good mood, I don't think about anything bad, and that was on a trip on a Friday. I worked all day, came home, did mushrooms, and then I was like thinking in depths about the evil in the world, and it freaked me out because I was thinking about like people like Hillary Clinton and how deep that shit goes, of what they're actually doing, and that shit on the Wiener laptop was real, all that stuff, and it was like a weird state of consciousness to think about that stuff. And then Chelsea came home from work, and I was like, the fucking, the world's so evil and there's all these like fucking people, and it was like she did not want to hear it, and I was like in that mind state. It was like, I'm glad we did this though. I feel like I need to get off this shit off my chest, and we don't do this that often unless it's on a Patreon episode. So this is what you look forward to, is hearing our real raw thoughts on certain things on certain episodes. But what'd you think? This is why I do the main show. Do you get it though? As like, I like joking, having to talk about this stuff, but not so heavily.
And now everybody will have to go and follow Tom's new YouTube channel after he posts this on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. I feel
You're
like
probably gonna get cancelled.
Yeah, I know. We'll see if this goes straight to YouTube. I would like it to. I'm gonna see, but if not, you can catch it. Maybe we'll just like, honestly, just in case type of thing. For everybody, look up Strange Brew Podcast on BitChute and on Rumble. And eventually, I keep saying I gotta do it and put it on Rockfin, which the guy shouted out to me for months, and I've never done it. It's because you have to sign up for some weird wallet thing, and I just Juan and the dudes from Reality Czars and stuff like that are like, put it up there, get on Rockfin. So we'll be doing that. But I feel like I needed to get this off my chest and talk about some of this shit. Maybe I'll put just a clip of this on YouTube so people can maybe tune in on the audio or on BitChute or Rumble. But there's a lot of stuff coming for Strange Brew and Class Horrorcast, but I feel like we both needed this probably.
Yeah, like there's probably, look, I could probably go on and on and on. And,
Me too.
And there's like so many different issues that like either bother me or interest me, or I kind of question, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't really. And again, it doesn't always have to be, some people might say, oh, you guys have been so negative, blah, blah, blah. It mightn't even necessarily always be that, but there's often things I come across or news stories or things I hear. And like, I don't instantly jump to like, oh, this is my opinion, but I'm like, that's a bit fucking odd or strange, or I'd like to know more about. That doesn't make much sense to me from the outside.
It's to keep you under this lock and chain of being in fear, because fear controls you. So I remember, just a quick story. When I was at a restaurant, I remember arguing with this girl I worked with, and we were sitting at the bar, and she said something, I'm sick of watching the Syrian children wash up on the shores. After I said, I was like, and she was like, I was like, all this shit's fake. This shit is not as real as they're claiming it is. It's not the crisis that you think it is. The United States is actively bombing Syria through Israel and doing this. They're using Israel as fucking fort to fucking, and people can think that whatever they want, that's true. Look it up. The Zionist agenda that's going on in Israel is not good. And they're bombing and using them as a catalyst to bomb and control all the countries around them. So I remember saying like, she's like, oh, they're fucking all the children washing up on on the shores. And it was one of those news channels that have the weather and stuff, and it's nothing but negative news, constantly negative. And I'm like, military age men are coming into the country. That's who's coming into the country, not women and children, and it's still happening to this day. And people don't understand that. And it's mass immigration will be another talk for another day, because immigration is good.
We need to free up a whole day for that one.
I know. Immigration is good. Mass immigration will destroy a country. But like, so if people like this conversation, please let us know, because recently me and Aaron have talked about eventually creating a political show where it would be every like 2 months, and we gather up the main news stories for over that like 2 months, like maybe bi-monthly, and then eventually it'll become more like you'll hear it more often. And I think I have a name, but we're gonna maybe juggle around some shit. But if you guys like it, let us know. I really want to hear your thoughts on it. And if you don't like my opinion, again, I don't care.
And it's okay to say that. It's okay. It's okay not to like Tom's opinion or my opinion. That's actually completely fine. I'm not even trying to like, this isn't some sort of like, think what I think, or I hate you or you hate me. We're just like, it's the idea of like, it's okay to think whatever you want to think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. I'm not trying to stop anybody from thinking what they think, but I also think that I should be allowed to feel however I want to feel.
Yeah. And that's why I like, Anton his opinions don't align with my opinions on a lot of issues, and that's fine. Billy is kind of like, if I can label anything, he's like a centrist. He just plays the middle on everything. But he will still have his opinions on stuff. And that's why it'll be funny to eventually bring him on the political show. And I'm sure every time if we do choose to do this, and maybe if we can be careful, do it on YouTube and stuff like that, and Rumble and live stream certain episodes, I'm sure that it would be actually quite funny, considering how Billy is, to just hear his take on certain really important political issues. But there's a lot of fun stuff coming. Like, this is why I do this is why I do Strange Podcast for what it is, because we plan to actually, which is coming, to do an episode about these little people in mountains. And you'll hear it when, I'm not going to shout out yet, because you'll hear it when it comes out and when we do it. But I thought we need to talk about what's going on, considering I walked out of my work and it could breathe in smoke and shit like that into the air. And it's quite strange, all the shit that's happening. And I think if people do enjoy this more serious talk, subscribe to the Patreon, because there's more Strange Stogies coming, which are more going to be jokey, but we're going to talk about political issues. But like, that's why I do the show, though. You see it, like, I want to have fun talking about this stuff, but also talk about the very fantastical parts of it. Like, we're working on a big gray alien episode, so I hope that comes out before you guys know it.
And that's the beauty of this, and I hope people see that, like, that it's not a, I don't know. I think sometimes people try and twist it into like, oh, you're trying to like make it this way, or you're trying to make it that way, or whatever. It's like, no, we're having a free form conversation, and
yeah. And these are my opinions.
Yeah, and this could have very easily been like, you might have said something, or I might have said something amidst that conversation, and the other person would have been like, well, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of why we do this. And like, obviously I align with more people that share the same ideas that I do. But like, at the same time, some of the people on the show, we don't share always the same ideas and thoughts on things, and that's okay. That's part of this shit. But as soon as it goes too far, then it's like, I control this stuff. This is my show. So I choose to do what I want with my show and where I want the future of my show to go and stuff like that. So if people find what I'm saying here today offensive, you're probably not a real host at then. Get the fuck out of it. I'm just kidding. But we love everybody that listens to the show. I truly do. And if you don't if you don't have the same thoughts that I do, that's okay. this show, and I'm putting this out there, that this will be eventually created for like a Patreon stuff and a show maybe outside of this one that is political realm on my kind of anarchist thought process and your views and Billy's views and even like Anton's views about stuff because he's more left leaning. Because it could happen where we do something like that and me and Anton have more or less a debate. Like you've said, you've heard us talk over our voice chat.
I suggested that a few times.
You said it should be a show because we very much don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. But I think that this is worth the conversation of talking about this shit. But remember, this is Strange Brew, and there's a lot of funny ass shit coming. I have so much plans. There's so much stuff that I haven't even released yet that has already been recorded that is coming. So, and then First Class Horror. You know how excited I am for what's coming on there? We're constantly back and forth ideas. Like we have a horror show, a conspiracy, paranormal, true crime show, and eventually maybe a political show coming. So
it's like I feel like we have all bases covered there, from like super like negative and like what people see as like a downer to like super fun.
Fun, I know, because there's so much stuff coming. So everybody love everybody. You have anything to say?
No, just
samesies.
Yeah, no, I really don't, because I feel like I'll just go off on another.
I know.
That's why I've been trying to like shut my mouth for the last half an hour.
What is we planned for 45 minutes and it's went almost 2 hours. So.
Yep.
All right, everybody love everybody. Stay tuned because there's a lot of stuff coming. So leave us a rate and review, 5 stars. If you don't like what we have to say, please just fuck off. Just kidding. But truly, like, come on. Like, we are doing something that's different and yet the same. And yet it's Strange Brew. It's always going to be strange. I never know how to end these things. So peace out, fuckers.
Peace.